Hello friends and welcome back to Everything Tumbler Tutorials. My name is Rebecca Escott, and if you haven't already, head over to AB Designs Co. for all your tumbler and glitter needs. Their glitters come in many colors, shapes, and glitter sizes for all your tumbler and crafting designs. Hey friends and welcome back. Today in this video I'm going to show you how you can make the easiest sunset blended tumbler using acrylic paints. So I just want to mention that you'll notice that I did not show the spray painting technique of the tumbler because I actually did this like 2 weeks ago. I had a whole nother plan for this tumbler, but I didn't follow through. So for that, I'm just going to use this tumbler as my guide, but as we progress through my paint drips, you'll notice that the colors do not correspond with the color of the tumbler. So you have a couple of different options because you can have a solid white tumbler painted and place your dots accordingly, and or you can go ahead and spray paint the tumbler for the colors as a guide for your placement of your acrylic paint dots. So you'll see right out of the gate things just don't line up. I've got purple over the purple and the blue, and I've got the yellow coming over with the yellow and orange blend at the bottom, but that's okay. So I'm just going to start placing the dots throughout the tumbler until I have all of my colors placed. And don't worry, I will have all the colors as well as the brands down in the description for you guys below. I kind of speed this process up because, as you can see, I'm just dropping paint in certain sections to kind of make it make sense. At this point, this is where I should have just stopped because I decided that I was going to go in with a little bit of black. I actually did more black than I actually intended on doing. So unfortunately, I had more of a deep, darker sky than the purplish sky that I was going for. So always, always, always be careful when adding in the blacks because it can really take over the color. And to blend the tumbler at this point, now that all of our paint has been applied, I'm taking a wood chip brush and I'm really gonna let the turner do the work for me. So while your tumbler is turning, you're gonna take your wood chip brush, pick a section, put your wood chip brush up against the paint, but very, very lightly. Allow the tumbler to spin while you brush over it. Once I get done with this section, you'll see that I kind of make a mess on my parchment paper and just really taken that color off so that I can move down into the next section. Once you're pretty confident that you've gotten most of that deep dark color removed, we're going to go ahead and go right over the next section. And we're going to start blending the purple and the Vermillion Red. You'll also notice that a part of my wood chip brush is also over the black. That's perfectly fine. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Because again, we want to blend this all together. Once I was pretty happy with this section, I decided to go ahead and wipe my brush off again, and this time I did put my brush into some water just to help remove most of those deeper, darker colors before moving in to the bottom half of the tumbler. This is a very simple process and makes it super easy to blend. Just make sure that you're cleaning your brush in between. Now you can easily use new brushes each time, but there was really no point in doing so. As long as you dab it off and make sure the colors aren't aggressive on your brush as you move down into the lighter colors. Here's where you're really going to see some of the blend between the yellow and the I think this is burnt orange, and everything really starts coming into play. Once I was satisfied with my blending, I allowed this to dry for several hours before applying the first coat of epoxy. I also want to mention that this tumbler was not sealed before I applied the first coat of epoxy. For my first coat of epoxy, I am going to be using Fast Set from Counterculture DIY. I just want to point out that I am not wearing the proper gloves. Please make sure that you guys are wearing the proper PPE when you're working with epoxy. I am double gloved. My husband picked these up for me and grabbed the wrong ones, being in a freaking hurry. So unfortunately, you know, the show must go on. I'm doing what I can to keep bringing videos to you guys. So please don't beat me up in the comments. Please make sure that you're wearing proper protection when you're working with epoxy. And again, I am double gloved for a little bit added protection, as they are not the correct ones. With that said, make sure you use your heat torch to pop any bubbles that you may or may not be able to see. Allow this to fully cure before moving on to the decal phase. So I wanted to show you how I came up with the designs for the sunset tumbler. And the palm trees I pulled from Yahoo, just finding one of my favorite ones that I thought would look the nicest. And the family are actually in Cricut Design Space images. So once you get your palm trees within Design Space, we're going to go to the upper portion of the panel and we're going to click the unlock button. And this way we can scale this design the size that we want for our tumbler. And I really wanted those palm trees to stand a little bit taller and a little less wide. Once I have that figured out, I'm then going to go ahead and grab my family. And I just typed in walking the beach or walking to the beach or something, and I found the father and son, and then I found a female that I wanted to add into the mix. So this way it would look and appear as a family is walking the beach. As you'll notice that the father and son are already like silhouettes. The female that I pulled in, she's really meant for layering so that you can get the colors shown and or change them to what you want. However, I needed her to be a silhouette as well. So I just grabbed everything and then welded it together so she now becomes a silhouette. I just changed her color from tan to black just for the sake of cutting. So then what I did was I just guided her in to the hand of the father so that it appeared as though that they were holding hands. And of course I had to adjust her size so again it would make sense. Once I had her sized accordingly and the hands looked like they were holding hands, I was able then to select all three and weld them together. So when I cut this image, they would cut together. Once I had them welded together, I was then able, as a group, to size them down so that it would make sense on the tumbler. Once you have your images sized accordingly, you're now ready to go ahead and cut your images. Now you have two options. You can choose to cut these images separately, which is what I did for tutorial purposes because I think it's so much easier, and or you can weld the entire image together and cut as one large image. So I cut my decals out using Tech Wrap Craft Vinyl. This is a black vinyl, but it has a glittery effect to it, which is exactly what I was looking for. And it still gives me that silhouette appearance for this beautiful sunset tumbler. As I weed out the decal, you will notice the family is missing. I decided to go ahead and cut the images separately, and thank goodness I did, because as I went to place the family, Mama buckled up on me. So you'll notice here shortly how I had to kind of fix her and manipulate her so that she would lay nice and wrinkle-free on the tumbler. Notice that I'm placing my decal right at the bottom rim of the tumbler. Then I'm going to press from the center, working my way out to also help prevent buckling, wrinkling, and air pockets. Once you have the decal in place, go ahead and use that velvet side of your squeegee and really rub this down, making sure that it's firmly attached to that tumbler before pulling your contact sheet. So now it's time to place the family, in which, by the way, I thought was going to be easy peasy. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, Mom at the end there wanted to buckle up. So I went ahead and placed the father and son, really got them attached to the tumbler, and then I very, very, very carefully removed the contact sheet because she was not going to move. And I didn't want to risk tearing her and then having to recut. So I'm going to go ahead and very carefully pull off the contact sheet, and then I'm going to use my weeding pen to ever so carefully lift her up and straighten her down. Because if I had just pressed down how she has that little hump in her back, if you know what I mean, she would have for sure wrinkled. So as you'll notice, I'm just taking my time, barely breathing, trying to lift her up ever so carefully to where I can lay her back down and she's nice and wrinkle free. Okay, now we can breathe again, and now we can go ahead and place our saying. I chose sunrise, tan lines, and sunset repeat. I know on film the words look a little bit hard to see, but I promise you in person this is actually spectacular, and I freaking love all of it. I could have brought down my saying just a smidgy, but I didn't. I love it, but again, on camera it's super hard to pick that up, but if you've got that light reflecting it, you can really see it. So overall, I'm ecstatic about this tumbler, and nothing needs to be sealed. She is ready for another coat of epoxy. I am going to add in MJ's Magic Mix Silver for like a little sparkly effect up at the sky, the dark sky. So I'm going to mix that right into my epoxy, and I'm going to apply it all over as I normally would. But then once I had the epoxy applied, I had a lot more of the chunky bits at the bottom, and I didn't really want that. So once I had everything applied, I then decided off camera I was just going to attempt to take off those chunky bits, get them off, and keep them primarily up at the top, which worked perfectly. And as always, make sure you use your heat torch to pop any bubbles you may or may not be able to see. This tumbler needed one more final coat of epoxy, and it was completed. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial today, and if so, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tutorials coming soon. Also, please leave me a comment, as I love to hear from you guys about what you thought about this blended sunset silhouette tumbler.